welcome everyone. This is episode 2 of season 2 in the Immersive Theatre of Learning. Some familiar faces, 2 new faces, Luis and Maria. And we have one of our most regular guests coming in, Aliona, and together with Cindy. And so Alex also has been here very, very often. And most of my regular guests are speakers today as well. So if you show up often enough, you become a speaker more or less automatically in this program. So no, why have I picked Alex and Marco and also Cindy to run this session with me today? Because it's about traveling. And Alex deals in traveling, so it's his business. Marco has organized quite a few journeys before, and Cindy and I are launching this, so it's a pretty new thing for us, and so we're very excited about this, and also to see learning not just from a tourism, but to see traveling not just from a tourism, but also from a learning perspective. There are more people coming in, so maybe just a very, very quick round of introductions. And I would like to ask you to share either the best trip you've ever had or the worst trip you've ever had, or both. Not as an organizer, Alex, but as a traveler. Anyone who wants to go first?
Keep it short. It's a general question?
Yeah.
Can it be the same trip?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I made this fantastic and very confusing, explosive trip last year to Europe. So what is very valuable about this trip, I haven't traveled for 12 years because I have an issue with my daughter. So it was very special and important for me to take the decision, because I'm deep inside my heart, I'm a traveler, I'm a, an explorer or whatever. Just deep inside my heart. In reality, no. But well, that's what it is. So I made this fantastic and amazing trip, a very emotional trip, because I've seen things I never dreamed to see. I experienced things I never dreamt to experience. And I learned a lot of special things about myself and the people around me. Mm-hmm. And I met such amazing people. I mean, and I would do that again, it like wakened me up somehow. But it was, traveling is also about transforming yourself. And it's not that easy. I mean, you can travel, and in Rome, they stole my credit card, and I was in the middle of nowhere. I never been in that city before. And it was 10 p.m. There was a strike, a train strike. So it was 10 p.m. I had no money. I have no line. My phone didn't work, and I didn't know the city, and I was alone. So this kind of adventures are like, whoa, that never happened to me in my own country. I didn't speak Italian, and although I have very good friends in Italy, like Marco, there was no way I could reach him, or there's nothing he could do for me, because I was, so I met these amazing people, because I ended up helping some poor Spanish girls that they didn't speak, not even English, and they were trying to find their hotel. So instead being me alone walking in the not that beautiful part of the city, yeah. I was guiding this girl. So I was, so it was a very fun experience, but it started very bad, you know.
Okay.
So it's a very it was a very transforming journey. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I don't know what you think, Marco and Alex. We could stop the session here because basically Yamile just mentioned all the ingredients of a great journey, right? So it's transformational. So you came back changed. Connections. So you met people, right? Um, the unexpected, right? So adventure, and so many other things there as well. Where are you based normally for those of us who don't know you? Where do you...
I live in Cholula, Mexico.
Okay, great.
And as I have been in Europe like for, well, now this was but I have been in Europe like for a couple of times before, and I travel a lot. Well, I used to travel a lot to the States, United States, but this was the longest journey alone, you know, I had, and it was very transformative for me. I mean, I love it. I want to do that again, but I have to convince Marco to invite me because I don't think he wants to. He said, okay, with one problem at a time, you know.
Yeah. We also know that Italy is one of the most dangerous places in the world. That's why Cindy and I are organizing a retreat in a couple of weeks' time, and Marco lives there. Anyway, I'm just joking. Anybody else who would like to share either the best or the worst trip, or even a combined best worst trip? Maybe we have time for one more story.
Sure, I'll share. Oh, Aliana, you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have time for both of you. So Aliona first.
Well, it's not a story. It's just a question I wanted to ask. Sorry, Luis, for interrupting. Do we have a definition of a trip? How long does it have to be called a trip? Like, I took a trip to the United States 10 years ago, and here I am still. And now I'm going on trips to my home country, Belarus. I was in Germany for 5 years. Was it a trip or was it not? So when is the border? When is it's a trip or not the trip anymore?
That's
But
very...
it's a really hard question, like the best and the worst. Like to me, any trip is adventure, exciting. I'm looking forward to it, change of scenery, and bad things can happen, good things can happen, but it's always learning from that experience. So like maybe if I think more about it, maybe I am overthinking, but
Yeah.
that's my answer, or more questions than answers.
That's a very good point. I mean, the same happened to me in France. I'm not from France originally, and I just wanted to explore the country, and I'm still here after more than 30 years. Yeah. So yes, Caroline, you wanted to react?
Well, I've traveled many times, a year and a half from Japan to Afghanistan and back, and all over. But when I got into a job situation, so I had to learn to trust people, and I really did. I have street smarts as well, but I got into a job situation where I couldn't trust some of the people I was working with. And then I was sent to India to work, and it coincided with not liking what happened to this Carolyn Riefel that could build trust. So I went to India. I flew into Mumbai, not where I was going to be working, but I wanted to see it since it had been decades since I'd been there. And I just learned to trust again. I let one of the travel people come up, and I realized by him talking to me, he was a slightly older man. Nobody else bothered me, and he wanted to take me in this car that another man was driving, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I want to look around here first. And then I made sure that when we went to where the car was, everybody saw me. And then I went into the hotel and I just did that. And then I get in this car Land Rover with two men that I didn't know. And it worked out fine. And when I got back to my office in the US and I told some of the people, well, I got in a car with two men that I didn't know, they were totally shocked. But I came back having found myself. I was the Carolyn Riefel that could trust people. So that was really important for me.
Yeah, interesting. So again, a transformational experience. And Luis, you wanted to share a story as well.
Well, first, you need to know Aliona is the friend who invited me here. So, and she's a wonderful human spirit if you don't know that already. Anyway, when I was on the board of geographic expeditions for about 10 years, I took many trips, but the most amazing trip I'll never forget was going to Uganda to meet the silverback gorillas and his family. And I'm telling you, to be 10 feet away and look in his eyes, all I could do was go, oh my God, we are related. I got it right away. And then to really oversimplify the experience I had about evolution, it's like then after watching him and his couple of wives and children and stick to 58 minutes, it's as if he knew exactly how much time they'd agreed and no more. You know, he'd get up and walk away and they would walk away. But then we went out and met the pygmies who had all lived there, just like all of us would be able to tomorrow if we had to. Okay? They had lived there forever. And therefore, they were human, 4 feet tall and human, but there was none of the evolution that we have had. And they, for instance, this is the most sophisticated thing they had made. And I love it. And I have a cup also. But they danced with us, you know, and they had human spirit. And it was fascinating. And the reason that was amazing, only the second of the three pieces, was then their children had been taken down to be educated. Mm-hmm. And when the children walked up the hill as we left, we connected with them and they were as smart as our children. Just because they had been educated. So smart, forgive me for using that word. They were just as evolved as our children. Yeah. I'll never forget that. From the gorilla to the pygmies to their children. It's like, whoa, all in one afternoon.
Wow. Yeah.
I can't forget that.
Thank you for sharing. Diana, your first time. Thank you for coming, and you put your hand up.
Hello.
See you.
So yes, I wanted to share with you. I am Colombian, and when I was living in Colombia. Now I live in France. When I was living in Colombia, I used to work with indigenous people in mountains, like how do you call them in English? Foreign, local people, traditional communities, and ethnies. Mm-hmm. And when I used to travel, I was living in the big city in Bogota. When I used to travel to the mountains, or when I used to travel to the deep forest of the Amazon to work with these people, I was feeling like very, very far away from, like in another world, completely in another world. It was discovering, like every minute I was discovering a whole new universe, but it was really close to the city. I mean, we were like 1 hour or half an hour in plane, so it's kind of incredible imagining that in my own country, this huge faraway travel and discovery moment was possible. So it's like really close to you. You can find the most impressive discoveries, and that's what I wanted to share with you. And as I live in France now, I can still say that I try to live in this way. How can I live have the close discovery every time I move? So whenever I'm in France, I am always feeling like a tourist in a way, or a visitor, or a traveler, because I am always watching things in that way. So it's like discovering things that are really near to you. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's also good to keep that curiosity wherever you are, even if you are at home, right? One of my favorite activities I do is what I call curiosity walks. So it's just you have nothing to do, you just go out to rediscover your neighborhood with a particular focus that you usually don't have because you just want to go somewhere and so many things to discover. So you can be a tourist or a traveler anywhere, even in the most familiar places.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing. Hello, Jenny. Good to see you. Right. Before we come to Alex and Marco, I just wanted to share a quote with you, and I wanted to ask you if you agree. Oops. Travel is like an endless university. You never stop learning. So Harvey Lloyd is a photographer who also made the photo we can see on the slide. So travel is like an endless university. You never stop learning. I wonder if you agree with this and if travel is always, whatever happens, a way of learning.
Yeah, of course. Life is learning every minute, wherever we are.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling involves people watching, like we all endlessly do.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
just the best way to learn anything,
Mm-hmm.
anything, even about yourself. You can go to a place you've never been before, and you will learn things about the deep inside yourself. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's like awakening, traveling.
Yeah. Yes.
I really like this metaphor because it is not always learning. The same as with the university, you can go and learn if you want to, but if you can go and listen to lectures but not hear them and not learn anything. I think it's the same with travels.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Carolyn says learning is intentional, and some people never leave their bubble and learn nothing. The opportunity is there, but you have to be intentional. Yes. Do you want to say something about that, Carolyn? I think we all have the kind of tourist, maybe stereotypical tourist in mind who goes somewhere, not necessarily to learn.
Well, I'll distinguish between a tourist and a traveler, I guess. A little bit artificial, but and not true for all tourists, but some people just, they go on a trip, it's pretty planned, they know exactly where they want to go, they're not interested in anything else. And actually twice mostly I've traveled alone, but would meet people, and twice I had to fire my travel companions because they were rude to the locals or they had no interest.
Mm.
And because I didn't need to be with anybody, then I just went off on my own. And then the reverse of that is you kind of have to recognize when you're on overload and maybe you have to stay in your room and read a book in English that day, or hang out at the coffee shop with all the other foreigners, that kind of thing. So you have to monitor it. But yeah, some people aren't interested.
Mm. Yes. I must confess, I used to live in a very touristy place, and there are various reasons why I don't live there anymore. But actually, I realize now that I didn't particularly like being there because of the tourists. So whenever there were a lot of tourists, I felt that the place was basically invaded, that the place didn't belong to the locals anymore, that everybody came there just to buy drinks, to consume basically. And there was also a lot of noise, and there was a lot of litter, and there was a lot of the nuisance that come with mass tourism. And yes, Alex, I wonder what your take is on this.
I think let's first give Yamil. I think you wanted to say something, Yamil,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I completely disagree that learning is intentional. I think you learn despite you don't want to learn anything. Because even the people that don't want to learn anything, even the typical American guy that just wants to get drunk and go to Xochimilco because he's drinking a lot of beer, even him learns a lot. The first time the Moctezuma hits him and he cannot get out of the bathroom because he didn't respect Mexican rules, he learns. And he doesn't want to learn what he learned. So I don't agree. Traveling is always a learning process, even though sometimes it's hurtful, even though sometimes you don't want to learn and you just want to bring beer and have it cool and you're not interested in the culture or even though in those moments, even though you are in front of the Capilla Sixtina and you don't look up, still then you will learn something because you are somehow opening your mind. And I don't agree learning is intentional at all because I have learned things I really didn't want to learn in all my life. And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Life is like that. Traveling is like life.
Yeah,
I believe that. Yeah.
Sometimes learning just hits you, and sometimes you learn the hard way. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's unexpected sometimes. Alex, let's come to you. So, what is your take on the ugly tourist or the difference between tourists and travelers? Maybe you see it in a similar way to Carolyn, or
That's such a such a great and big question because me as a person who, studied tourism in like 3 universities, I don't know why I did it, but I did, and working in it for more than 2 decades now, and I live, I don't know, I hope that noise cancellation cancels the noise from the outside, but if it doesn't, you may hear some bits of place where I'm right now. It's Playa del Carmen, Mexico, the Riviera Maya, 10 million visitors every year. The entire place is basically occupied by, all-inclusive hotels. And the things that you're talking about, this is very deep philosophy, and I don't even want to dig the whole of that because just for the sake of keeping the interest of our dear attendees today. But just to summarize it, I think the biggest problem here, I think, is how natural are the ingredients of this experience. Because of course everybody is learning, but it doesn't mean that what they learn is, a good thing. And me living on the kind of backyard of the all-inclusive, not a resort, but entire region, I see very well how these decorations are built in real life for people to experience something that is fake.
Mhm.
So people come here and they're like, hey, oh, this is Mexico. So it means what? Tequila, I don't know, cocaine, mariachi, and things like that. Well, it has nothing to do with this place. I mean, I'm in Yucatan. This is Maya land. This is totally different culture in this sense. And to wrap up my already long talk, in all my conclusions, talking about travelers and tourists, I would conclude that travelers nowadays are those who care about the place. And this usually, to me, like the fundamental thing is basically the nature of the place, like literally wildlife. How much does it left because it really suffers? And indigenous cultures, not even locals, because what means locals? I have 300,000 people right now in Playa del Carmen. It used to be 20,000, like 20 years ago. So they are all locals. I'm local right now, but I'm not, right? So indigenous cultures and nature, those are things that actually give travel the deepest meaning I found so far from the place perspective.
Mm-hmm. We come back to you in a minute, but Diana has raised her hand. We'll come to you.
Thank you, Bernd. So I just wanted to add, in my case, for example, I think it's like, as you said right before, curiosity is one element, and minding the others and really being curious about and wanting to learn about the other culture is what it really matters. Because sometimes in my life I have traveled because I wanted and I didn't have the time, so I had to take a tour. So I would be called a tourist in this sense, but my way of watching things was really wanted to get deep, but I didn't have the choice to have a tour. I had to take it. It wasn't a choice. And some other times I could choose and travel in another way, and sometimes I had to work and travel. So it's I think it's a personal position that you take. Whatever you're called, tourist or traveler, it's your way of watching things that really counts.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Now, Alex, you mentioned that you've worked in the travel industry for a while. You studied tourism. Could you share with us a little bit of what kind of travels you organized or you organize?
Because I'm from Siberia. I was born very close to these mountains in my background. I mostly organized trips to very remote places. You know, my first trip in my life, I mean, foreign trip, was to Western Mongolia, because this used to be my neighbors, you know, and I used to speak a little bit of Mongolian. I know I don't look like, but you know, that's Siberia. And that's what I used to do, basically, going to all the different places and trying to understand the nature of the place, like go as deep as possible and trying to even understand what does it mean deep, you know, where is depth? How is it? Like, I'm not digging it with a shovel, right? like I'm looking into the meanings of the place and what does it mean. And right now I am getting back actually into this roots because yeah, I had to basically make the full circle, starting from expeditions, and now I'm getting back to expeditions. I think I just do it way more intentionally, and this meaning became actually a very big ingredient for me.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, very good. And we also have Marco here, Marco Bertagni, whose main job is not to organize trips, but I know you've organized quite a few meaningful trips in the past, meaningful journeys, and you gave them a particular name. Could you tell us something about these journeys?
Yes, thank you, Bernd. My main job is organizing trips for myself because I like being traveling all the time. So it's for sure something very central in my life, traveling. And yeah, just shortly going back to the very interesting discussion we had so far about the distinction between a tourist or a traveler. I'd just like to mention the start of a beautiful movie by Bernardo Bertolucci, The Sheltering Sky. In Italian is Il Tè nel Deserto, where John Malkovich and Deborah Winger, they talk about the distinction at the beginning of the movie between a traveler, who is something that goes to a place and just looks forward to discover what's there, while the tourist is someone who, as soon as he gets to a place, is thinking of when he will go back to his place. So that's, I think, an interesting distinction between a tourist and a traveler. But of course, as Diana said it well, it depends on how you live the feelings that every trip can give to you. Even a trip out of your door can be surprising, because I think that's the main ingredient among those that have already been mentioned of traveling is having a sense of wonder about what's around us everywhere. You don't need to go to Patagonia or Mongolia or such beautiful remote or original places to travel. You can do it even in your room. You need to have this, of course, I'm talking for myself. You need to have this sense of wonder. And another fundamental ingredient, I think it could be open-mindedness. Meaning by that, that's you can go even 10 times in a place, but you still can be surprised by that place. And also you need to forget about your roots. What I really don't like about Italian traveling is when they go somewhere and they say, yes, but in Rome we have the Colosseum. What is this? I mean, you need to respect the places you go. You need to forget about where you come from. Each place has something that deserves to be learned. And going also to what Yamile said, I personally think that you learn what you want to learn. This is connected to the open-mindedness, to the will of learning, to the sense of wonder, and especially, and I go this way into the core of the geomyutical journeys that we organize, is leaving the place. I will be using two Latin expressions to mean what is the leitmotif of this geomyutical journey. Hic et nunc, here and now, it's really fundamental when we organize this kind of journeys. What we try to tell people is that they need to be there in that very moment. That's the first thing. Because if you are thinking about your problems or about some other places you have seen, you make comparisons, this really takes a lot out of the meaning of your trip. You need to be there. I always remember, I have an image in my mind when I talk about Hic et Nunc of I was in the Grand Canyon. I was waiting for Inopi Point to see a sunset, because that's a good point to see the sunset. And a bus of Japanese people, nothing against Japanese people, of course, but arrived. And they just went out of the bus by having in front of them their mobile phone or cameras. And they just took pictures of the Grand Canyon and went back to yes, like that, without even for a moment establishing a contact with the place. Now, I have a passion for photography, but I always recommend to forget about taking pictures. And we also talked about this with Alex, and he had a very interesting idea. Then if we have time, we can share it. Having a person taking pictures of your journey could be a good idea, because you really need to forget about your camera, because this is something that is between you and the place, and that's not good for traveling. Okay, and the other thing is about genius loci. The other expression, Latin expression, genius loci, means the spirit of place. You need to go beyond what you see. I mean, you see a place, it can be beautiful, but the sight is a sense that tends to monopolize other senses. We have other senses. To really know a place, you need to use your hands to touch, your nose to smell the place, and so on. You need to have a sort of synesthetical perception of the place in order to understand a little bit more of the place. And this is also the entrance door to the geography of emotions, because a place can really help you to elicit your emotions. If you leave that place in that way, it's a fantastic tool for you to understand a lot about yourself. That's going back. Also, the theme of the day is transformational journeys. If you live in a certain way, a place, whatever it is, it's a nice way to move your emotions, and this carries very often, not always, to a changement.
Yes, and I mean, I give you a chance to explain to some of us who don't know what emotional geography is and geomyotical journeys. Very, very important also in what you said is that in the journeys you and also the journeys that Alex organize, it is actually, I don't like the word, but there is facilitation in it. There is somebody who helps people make that connection. doesn't totally agree. I mean, you can be totally autonomous and can be thrown into the jungle and then, okay, you discover it and learn from it. Or you can do something like what Cindy and I are doing for the trip in April. So we have a program. So it's basically like designing a course, but instead of a classroom, we have a beautiful setting and we have activities and it's very immersive. And but it's all kind of in a way staged. So I think your journeys were a bit like that as well, no? So what is a typical activity in these journeys, Marco?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a facilitator or more facilitators, but these are light activities in the sense that each one creates their own journey. We just start these games with these journeys by playing two games. One is pack your luggage, and everyone packs their luggage by putting into the luggage some things that are connected to the person, because you carry yourself with your during your journey. I don't recommend to leave yourself and your problems at home. You need to carry everything with you, because the journey can be a medicine if you carry those things with you. And then the second thing we do is to map out your emotions. We draw a map in which somehow we define the way we imagine we will be doing the journey. And this is curious because at the end of the journey, things can be very different from how we expected. Because someone said already, and I mentioned Machado, South American writer, El camino se hace al andar, meaning by that's you do your journey while doing it. So you can even organize everything, but in every journey something happens, like it happened to Yamile to find some not nice people in Rome. That's you've been very unlucky. We are all nice there. Anyway, and so and during these journeys, people are quite free to have their own perception of the journey. It's curious because among the different games there's a game called Overground that is taking pictures of the emotions that everyone gets from the journey. And at the end of the journey, we analyze the pictures of everyone. And it's strange how the same place gave different feelings to the different travelers. For someone, that place meant sadness. For someone else, meant joy. So this is a way to see a place from different perspectives, because I think this is something we cannot stereotype any place. It depends on the way you live the place. It depends on the person. It depends on the wish you have to learn about that place.
Absolutely. Now, I'm very happy that we have Marco and Alex, almost like two antagonists. Did you see what Alex just put in the chat? We are not facilitators. We are conscious troublemakers.
Okay, I didn't read it.
Beautiful. So you need to explain that, Alex.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess if we dig a bit deeper, that would be also interesting for everybody, right? You have to, a big discovery for me was to understand that, even resort tourism professionally doesn't work on facilitating things. It's not like all inclusive and now you are just like, no, no, no. No, they put you away from everything. And that's the nature of their business. The nature of their business is not to feed you. The nature of their business actually is to put you away from the alternatives.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very big thing of how everything works on the other side. So, for example, the airport is not going to be built next to the, hotel, not for the sake of noise. It's not going to be built. So there would be some sort of drive from the airport to the hotel. So there would be more money generated. So because money comes actually from problems, not from, solutions. So if you create a problem, you create a revenue stream. And in these made up environments, I mean, it's the same like McDonald's. There is nothing spontaneous. It is designed this way. And that comes even for like this just mass tourism things. And of course, in personal growth things, people do not learn through somebody taking their hands and like walking them through the obstacles. It's rather like more of like looking and giving the direction, the obstacle is this way. I understand maybe you don't know it's there, but it's kind of this way. So this way is what we do as guides. But we are not the ones jumping over the obstacles because we already did it and like, okay, makes no sense for us. It's the internal inner growth of visitors who are sometimes getting scared. I really like, for example, taking people on a white water rafting trips because that's where people experience real fear. And then my also task is to be able to explain that and actually to live through it myself so I would understand how the fear on the rafting trip echoes with the fear in the real life. Like what kind of lesson can people learn from that and take it with them back home? So something like that. That's why conscious troublemakers.
I love it. All right. Great title, Conscious Troublemaker. Yeah, basically we build the obstacles sometimes, no? I mean, it's not like, okay, don't worry about the obstacle, you manage it. I help you get up there. No, this is the obstacle, right? And yeah, rafting, fantastic. I hope I won't catch you off guard, Karina, but as you are here, I would like to bring you into the discussion as a psychologist. Is there something about being in an unfamiliar place, traveling, that makes people more open to change, to learning, to transformation, or is that a myth?
Thank you so much. I don't think I'm off guard because I work with global mobility, but I don't know if the answer I'm going to give you is what you're looking for. That is always a surprise, right?
Be a conscious troublemaker.
Okay. So regarding this word, I think I told you that I was given a gift in the place where we met at the conference of Cietare Europa in Lille, where I was always called a troublemaker, and I was called again. I was with Giorgio Nardone, Marco, this weekend, right? You know about that, and I have a beautiful picture I will posting so that everybody sees it with Giorgio Nardone telling me that I was what is the word for the testicles? Well, apparently I was, this kind of person that annoys a lot with very difficult questions, with all of digging in and so on, right? So I'm used to having this kind of feedback, but I love the way what is her name? Shannon, I think it was. It was a woman that was in Lille, and she told me, you know what, you're not a troublemaker, you're a change maker. Like you have all these questions and you're constantly asking questions that many people have never asked themselves. And you need to continue asking those questions and you should never stop. And you will find on your way your allies, because being a change maker is a hard job to do. But if you have your allies, the journey is much simpler, right? So I prefer to call myself a change maker, just for the record,
Yes.
because travel maker has always made me feel that I'm doing something wrong. Shannon Murphy, yeah, that's it. So to me, it was like I really feel that my upbringing has a lot to do with who I am today, and I'm a highly mobile TCK, a third quarter kid. So I come from a cross-cultural family already, and then we moved every 2 years. So I have the mobility that brought to me what you guys are discussing today, right? It's the travels, but I was not traveling. I was relocating. I was having to settle down, to learn a new language, to know a new culture, meet new friends, etc., right? So this has been proven that when you have these kind of experiences, you develop a 360-degree worldview that people that do not move don't have this opportunity. It's not a matter of what it happens or what it doesn't happen if you do it and we don't do it. It's like if you've been in 60 different countries in the world and encounter 150 different cultures, we're necessarily much more aware of what the world looks like. Just because you have had access to all those different pieces and all those different ways of doing things, that a person that has stayed in one single place, always done the things the same way, and has never ever even considered that there is another way would have. I still remember when the first time we traveled with my I think it's called artistic gymnastic. So when you do all these things with the ribbons and things. So I was in a team at some point in my life, right? Because high mobility gives you these opportunity losses as well. So I lost this team at some point in my life again. But at some point I was part of this team. And we were up in the mountain of an island in the Canary Island. And we had to go to do the competition was at the bottom, in a village that was at the bottom. And I still remember those girls that were in the team with me going in that bus for the very first time to that village. They had not only not moved out of the island, but they had never moved out of the village. And to go down from that mountain village down to the valley, you have to go down a very deep mountain road. And you come to the edge here where you see the valley. And I still remember them on the bus saying, whoa, it's so big. Our island is so big. And I was like, you've literally never got down the mountain? It's like, it's not even like out of the island. It's like they had never even seen the valley. So their perspective of how big was the world was already different. We were very young. We were like 8 or 9 years old. But still, I had been in, I don't know how many countries already and so many places. They had never left the village. So when you think about that, of course, mobility brings you this acknowledgement of other ways of doing things, of other ways of existing, of landscapes. It's big, it's small, it's steep, it's flat. It's like you have all these other kind of information that, of course, enlarges your ability to build and to adapt and so on. Now, when it comes to the experience of how much an experience of travel can impact you versus an experience of repatriating or settling in a place, that's a completely different story. I keep telling my patients that repatriating or expatriation is not traveling. When they're going to come back home, it's not going to feel the same way as when they went back home for the holidays every year. Sure. It's just not going to be the same. Yeah. So it has a different impact. You do not leave this place in the same way. If you're traveling to Indonesia or you're traveling to, you name it, right? You are welcoming certain difficulties because you are in this setting, in this psychological predisposition to accept how things are going to be, because you know it has a period of time, right? It's just like when you are running a marathon, right? You are able to run it because you have set yourself a certain kind of amount. If you tell a marathon runner, I don't know, kind of 100%, 100 meter away from the finish line, okay, we're just going to put you 200 miles more, this person is going to find those 200 additional miles extremely more difficult than perhaps the 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers that they have done behind. Why? Because they were ready for it. They were in the mindset that this is what I'm going to go for, this is how it's going to be, and I am going to somehow kind of dosify my energy in a way that is going to make me successful in what I am going to go through. But if you don't prepare yourself, and this is what unfortunately many people that expatriate don't do, because I've been there so many times. That's why I'm moving to the Riviera Maya, because I love it. It's so nice, and the weather is so cool, and the people are so friendly, and it's like, wait. That's what we call the Disneyland effect. It's like, wait a second. You've been to Disneyland, and it was wonderful because you went there with a timing. This is what you were going to do. This is how much you were going to see. And this is what you experience. But if you go back to Disneyland to work, for instance, on a daily basis, the experience is going to change entirely.
Isn't that, I mean, I'd like to bring a word in here that has been overused, including by me. It's the word immersion. Isn't it the degree of immersion that makes that difference? So if you go somewhere to live there, even if it's for a year or two, even if you go to study somewhere, that's a more immersive and more intense experience, because you have to solve problems, you have to find your way, you have to buy your stuff, you have to find a place to live and things like that. It's much more immersive than going to a hotel. Maybe you use the same chain wherever you are in the world, if you have the budget. And a Hilton in Barcelona is not much different from a Hilton in Mexico City.
But this is the thing, is that there is this duality, right? There is a part of how immersive is the experience for you. So how you were saying, how much do I have to do to kind of integrate and so on. But then there is also how much am I open to let come in?
Yeah.
It's like when you're traveling, the experience can be very transformative. If that's what you're looking for, if that's what I am going to go there and I am going to get myself as much as I can. I want this culture. I want this experience to get me. I want to take something. This is what I want to happen, right? So if you are in this position, you will probably gain much more than if you're there just like on little, you know, those little boats that some experiences in theme park that just take you along and you just look around and that's it. But you don't have to fight, you don't have to do anything, you're just there. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's great, right? The main difference would be, is it the same to visit Rome on a bus, on a touristic bus, or to actually find your way through and find your best places to stay and the best places to eat and so on, right? So it's also how much you are ready to take in, and also how much the culture is ready to let in. Because there are some cultures that they're very close themselves, and they will only let you be this foreigner passing by, and they will take time to open up and say, okay, I may let you in as well. So it's very complex.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We come to you, Aliona, in a minute, but I'd like to challenge Alex. Alex, do you think you could design a travel experience as a, what was the word again? Conscious troublemaker, that has the same degree of immersion as expatriation?
Yeah, fairly easy. I think, I hope. At least, I have, for example, this idea. I would love, guys, if anybody of you would take this trip, help me to make it happen. But so, as you have heard, I love Mongolia, and I've been connected with this country for a couple of decades already. And you know, Mongolia has a very unique feature. You can literally just point your finger onto the map anywhere in the country. Then go there, and you will find some local nomads living in yurts there. and you can quite easily spend a week or 2 weeks there, just literally in the place where you randomly pointed your finger, because the culture of the country kind of allows this type of interaction. Everybody will be super happy to see you. It will certainly create some additional income for your hosts, and you will get to experience the place the way that they do. And this can be done pretty much across the entire country, so it's scalable as a business, really. But I think that could be a thing. So it's just creating the conditions where you need to learn the language, huge thing. So there's no translation where you have to like get to know this Mongolian language in the words.
Yeah.
And on the other side, this is just like literally, yeah, like immersion, that you have tasks, that you participate in a routine. And I'm quite confident that you will never, ever forget this type of trip.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yes. Well, I sign on. I don't know if any of you, but fantastic. Aliona, let's come to you. You had a question or a remark.
Not a question, just a remark. And Karina, thank you for sharing all the insights and asking those great questions. Some of them have been going through my mind. And I just remembered when I lived in Rostock in Germany on the Baltic Sea, beautiful place, not very, when you live there, you get to experience like the grayest winter in 40 years. It can get really cold in summer, like 10 Celsius. And they had like an advertisement for the city, work where other people go on vacation. And to me, it was like it almost plays against the city, like, okay, how can you invite people to work where other people go on vacation? But I just found it interesting that they chose that slogan for the city. And it does really make a huge difference being there for 2 weeks and enjoying the beach and the sea or some popular events and living there.
One of the amazing things about these Zoom calls is very often, whatever the topic is, but when people introduce themselves and people say, yeah, I live in the San Francisco Bay, or I live in Mexico City, and so on, everybody goes, or if I say I live in the north of France, everybody goes, wow. You think it's the most common place you live in, but then everybody else goes, wow. So every place is exotic for somebody, no? So Rostock is exotic for somebody. So every place is a destination, isn't it? And that makes it so rich. And probably the least touristic places can be the most exotic ones, in particular, where you find a lot of normal people and not a lot of people with cameras and iPhones. Anyway, I think at some stage we should also do a little bit of an activity. So I have a little assault on you. Just a minute. Oops, here we go. I'll share my screen, and then maybe we could go into breakout rooms for just a few minutes. So this is brand new. The world hasn't seen it. I came up with this afternoon. Maybe I stole it somewhere without knowing it. But it's, of course, everything that has to have an impact needs to be an acronym. So the acronym is SPARK. And SPARK stands for 5 things that, and what some of you have said before actually kind of confirms this, are important ingredients for a rich travel experience. The site itself, so the place, the location, the people there. Anecdotes, so stories about the place or things that you experience there. Resonance, so something about an emotional connection to the place. And also things you learn, so knowledge, so spark. How about that for an acronym? So if you'd like to take a screenshot of this or just write it down, spark, I would like to put you into breakout rooms for just a couple of minutes and discuss a place somewhere in this world. It can be a place that maybe one of you knows, maybe a place where you live, and try to speed design a travel experience that would include all these elements. So what's special about the place? So what is the magic of the site? What people should you meet there and how would you meet them? What are some of the stories around that place? Emotions that can be evoked, even though there is, of course, a range of emotions. We heard about happiness and sadness evoked by the same place, and maybe also things you could learn. I know this is too much for a short breakout room, but anyway, let's be bold. And let's make some random teams, and I will also come around because I'm curious. Let's take maybe 8 minutes for this, shall we?
Cut us off.
Yes, I know this was way too short, but I'm conscious of time as well because I don't want to run over too much. We'll probably run over a couple of minutes. But yes, this was mission impossible to create something. But did you get somewhere? Let's hear from room 1, Carolyn, Ginny, Karina, and Louis. What's your magic place?
I don't think we got that far. For Louis, it has to be really, really, really exotic, which I pointed out to him. Then, in spite of our uniqueness, he's totally rejected me.
And I tried to say no. We had to each fly though. Okay, and so for you to have a cafe to sit with all of us and feel comfortable there is fantastic. And I love the words yes and instead of but. Okay, yes, and then I want to have the local person take me to a place that I never could have experienced on my own or found and meet people I never could have met otherwise in my life. Like I'll never forget in Africa being taken over a hill and down into huts where those Africans had never been out in the places where whites had colonized. And they just, once they realized I was safe, because the person who took me was recognizable and spoke their language, the children came out and jumped on my lap and said, like, what's wrong with your skin? You know, it's like I had just wonderful experiences learning other lives. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you. And Aliona, Anneke, and Cindy.
Yes, and Diana, but she was frozen. We went to the Waddenzee. Never heard of it? I think it's in the northern part of Holland where I was born. Yeah, and it's a very maybe Cindy or Aliona should tell because I described it to her, but I'm not sure if I sent the message correct. So you want to come, or should I?
You do it.
You do it. Okay. Well, it's a sea, the northern part of the sea, and then there are islands, and there is a small sea in between, and there's the mainland. So the Waddenzee is sometimes flooded, and sometimes it's dry. Like so, if you're on a boat, it can occur that you are stuck at the bottom of the sea, and you can go out and walk, and then have to be back in certain hours to be able to go on the boat again.
Yeah.
otherwise you will
And,
drown.
and if you walk, you can drown if you don't pay attention.
Yes, it can be because it's very slick and
Mhm.
sucking clay. Well, okay, so that's the side. The people are, of course, amazing. I'm from there. No, that's totally. But they are poor. They are or artists or nature lovers or from the government, and they have always arguments about their interests. So the nature lovers want to reserve the nature. The people of the government want to have all the good stuff like the gas, what's coming from out of the ground, what's causing earthquakes, by the way. So people are in shock, really. And there are also artists. A lot of people can afford the houses there and live there, as well as my parents. So that's why I love this place as well. An anecdote is, I think when I was young, we traveled a lot to these islands. We went on a bike to the boat and boat to the island and back. So it's my childhood memory.
Yes.
Broad and sea and sand.
Yeah. I already have an idea for a workshop there.
Yeah,
the title would be How to Get Unstuck. Anyway, so
Cool.
the third room we had Alex and Marco and who else? Diana.
Yeah,
Diana, you
Diana
were in
and
two rooms.
Yamile.
And
Yeah, she
and
got
Yamile.
us.
Yeah.
Well, we have chosen 4 very spiritual places, I would say, because Yamile has chosen a place in Mexico, Tepoztlan, and Alex spoke about the Altai Mountains, and Diana about Sierra Nevada de Santa Maria in Colombia, and I spoke about Garfagnana, that is a remote valley in the north of Tuscany. I think the common, I mean, all these places has a lot of spirituality, and they are quite remote. So I don't know if we are solitary people or whatever, but
yeah,
it was nice, by the way, Bernd, to present a place we all love by using your acronym. It's interesting.
Okay, so it works. Thank you.
Yeah,
fantastic. So there is no session with me without a bit of a framework. So here we go. Now this goes back to, we've used this before. This is the progression of economic value by Pine and Gilmore, that some of you know. And if you use this for tourism, if you use this for hospitality, if you use this for the travel business, what do you think of this? Would services be something like, oh, yeah, it's back. So basic travel, where people can, of course, you always have experiences when you travel, but you may not book these experiences. You may just look into accommodation. You may just look into travel, and you basically want comfort, right? Instead of adventure. And that's fine. That's fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you have maybe a next level, which would be experiential travel, where you engage more actively with local culture, nature, adventure, and you may learn from local cultures, and you find personal enjoyment, enrichment. And then maybe there is a third level, or maybe it's the same level and it's just a different degree, which would be transformational travel, where you find profound personal change and self-discovery, something meaningful, reflection, sometimes related to healing. But then, of course, I suppose the same trip for one person could be basic, for another person experiential, and for the third person transformational. Alex, what is your take on this?
Oh, that's a very interesting and deep topic, because I also see it from the professional perspective, right? Like how does it work as a kind of Lego bricks, you may say. And on services, I personally would put, kind of like services, something that we use as ingredients for creating the experience. So if we would even look into the experience economy, I mean, they don't come up with like super like local experiences, right, as examples. So they literally just say, well, you take, I don't know, taxi driver, and you take an accommodation and you make it somehow memorable, and that makes the experience. So in this sense, I don't know, any sightseeing really can be an experience, and rather a taxi ride or a bus ticket is a service that is one of the ingredients of that. And the same with transformations. I kind of shift away from more of this healing spiritual directions of transformations. I mean, they certainly make sense, but I think for me personally, transformation as a sign of transformation is something that unlocks the next level. So healing for me would be rather kind of the experience, because you got healed and now you're better. But transformation, I think, would be like, for example, you climb the mountain and that unlocks you the ability to climb the next mountain, because now you are kind of how to say it, not capable, but allowed, basically. Like we climbers, we can't just go and randomly climb mountains. There are grades of them, right? So the same here. So something that unlocks the next level, and that can be, like, for example, learning how to make pasta in Italy with local chef, but you're gonna be able to open your own pasta place at home afterwards, because that kind of unlocks a new ability for you.
Yes, you discover the Italian inside of you. Yes. Karina.
I'm just curious about this transformation, because sometimes I have the feeling that we have it associated to only positive outcomes.
No.
It's kind of, you heal, you get this growth, you learn this new ability, and actually transformation also come from experiences that can be very painful, that can be very damaging, and that can be also transformational in the sense of perhaps you being a very open-minded and very free spirit and very kind of welcoming to people, and perhaps you get, I don't know, raped in a place after you're traveling, and that's also a transformational experience.
Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Somebody, catches a disease that can be transformational, right? So from one day to another, you learn that you have so much time to live, right? So that's transformational from 1 second.
Or you fall in the middle of the mountains and you get injured for life or something like that.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, definitely. But of course, you don't design for that kind of thing, right? So that's...
No, but what I mean is, like, sometimes we don't think about that, but if you design something and you think about those things possibly happening, you kind of design it with a little bit more awareness to create this safety kind of space, right? Or psychological aggression, right? Microaggressions or things like that, right? I think it's important to understand also that how is it going to transform, also considering what can go wrong? Because I think we very little think about what can go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, very briefly, this is something that some of you may be familiar with, the 4 realms of experience, and it kind of lends itself quite nicely to travel experience as well, but also learning in general. And you have these 2 dimensions, and you have these famous 4 E's: entertainment, which would be the kind of, you go somewhere to have fun kind of travel experience. Educational, so you go somewhere to learn. Escapist, you go somewhere to go somewhere, basically to escape your normal life. And aesthetic, You go somewhere just to be, maybe to reconnect with yourself. And what's the best is probably one that hits the sweet spot in the middle, right? So which combines all four of them in one way or another, right? So very often you have two of them combined, but four of them would be wonderful. Right. Before you all head off, maybe we can take another 4 or 5 minutes. And because Cindy and I are going to take the immersive theater of learning on the road and all the way to Italy, where it's not very exotic for you, Cindy, because you actually live there. So the photo you have as a background is probably taken from your place. Is that right?
The view is taken from the pillow on my bed. That's the view out my window in the morning.
Yeah.
Can Aliona had a very good question. She said, how far do you have to travel in order for it to be a travel? And then Mario, for me, answered it out the door. And the reason why I would say that is because of what was said also with Lewis. It seems to me, if I interpret what Lewis is doing, is that he notices where he goes, he notices unity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that you and I are talking about with this transformational travel in Dolce Aqua, is how are we connected to ourselves, to others, and to nature?
Yeah. Yes. Now, there are some photos here that I took when I came to see your place and when we started thinking about how can we organize this trip. And I thought, wow, this is like theater in the wild. This is an amazing place and an amazing village where you can get lost. And if you want to get lost, this is the place to go. But it's also something. Can you tell us a few words about Dolce Aqua?
Dolce Aqua is a medieval village. It's just a few miles inland from the Italian Riviera. And my house, with the land that I'm sitting in front of right here in this photograph, it's on a ley line which connects Ireland and Israel. So I think that there's a kind of spiritual component to it as well. But there's a lot that we can do. It's a very quiet place, and we can really experience silence and notice the unity within ourselves about how we want to perceive nature, for example. And I think it's kind of magical, actually.
Yeah. And yes, and I don't know how good we are at this because Alex is the expert of this and Marco is as well. But we try to, instead of saying, okay, what can we do here, what we normally do, we try to extract some kind of a message from the place. So what is it that the place asks for, right? And so one of the first things I saw was the idea of perspective, because there is a little anecdote here. It's Claude Monet, the French painter, who painted a more or less famous painting of the castle there in Dolce Aqua. And so you can see this kind of ugly frame there for the tourists to see, okay, if you take this view, then this is where you see the perspective. There's also the kind of little man there in the sinking boat there on the river, which is supposed to represent Monet. But we wanted to play around with the idea of perspective. What if you took a different view? What if you took a different perspective? What if you had lived in a different era? And so on. What would you see now? What would you see today? How would you paint your perspective of the place? Then also there is this interesting thing about relating to the past. We went up to this castle and Cindy told me something about these keys that hold everything together. So basically it's a ruin, right? So in some places you would do something to restore the building. What do the people there do?
They don't restore anything that was destroyed other than a destruction of World War II. What they do is they try to shore it up so that what you see today will last into the future. And what the keys do, they're these big metal bars that go from one wall to another wall to keep the walls straight. And there's a turn key in the middle, and you keep moving the walls bit by bit and bit by bit and bit by bit until the walls are nice and straight. They're hidden. So one of the questions we want to ask is, what are your hidden keys inside you that keep you standing straight and with your dignity and with your ideals?
Yeah.
That
And
might be hidden in others.
it's also an earthquake zone. So also when you go to the village, you see these archways and the connections between the buildings, right? To keep them more solid. So it's a very organic kind of village. And then of course, especially when on the second day, this is the day when we were actually more in the mountains on your farm, Cindy, where it's a lot about silence, about listening, and about harmony. But people often have a wrong idea of what harmony actually is. Cindy, could you say a couple of words about this?
People have a colloquial idea of harmony. I wouldn't say it's wrong, but it's a colloquial that getting along. But if you look at the physics of harmony, harmony is two or more simultaneous vibrations. Harmony in itself is inherent unity. The key is, what do we want to do with it? How do we notice it? And then what do we want to do with it? Simultaneous vibrations, they're everywhere all the time. Inherent unity. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. So that was a little bit of advertising. We're not launching this for real yet. So we're launching a test run. But the test run is going to be for people like you. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but not that much money as we would normally ask for the travelers. But in return, we would ask people who would like to sign on to give us feedback. So it's kind of a beta version of the real thing, which could probably be as good as the real thing, but there's always things to be improved. And it's good to have professional facilitators or friends to be with us. Some people have already signed up to actually give us feedback, honest feedback, and what is good, what could be added, what could be taken out, and so on. And Alex has already helped us a little bit getting ideas together. And Marco, I think you're coming, right?
I will do my best for sure. No, really, I'm very curious.
It's on record now.
Yeah, okay, I know. Okay, you're tricky. I said it before the beginning, but now I said it officially. Yeah, I will do my best. It doesn't mean I will be there. Maybe my best is not enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming. Sorry about the overtime. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wherever you are, and maybe see you again next month. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Bernd. Thank you, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for organizing it, Bernd.
And thank you, Alex. Thank you, Marco.
Bye.